Hey folks, welcome back to another edition of My Car Guru. I was looking at the statistics from my podcast. Now, this is broadcasted in two different ways. One is local AM radio, which probably reaches out maybe 30, 40 miles. I don't know how far it goes, the signal for WJCW. I know you can listen to radio shows on, iHeartRadio, and there's probably some other apps like that. That's how I listen to UT ball games when I'm on a cruise or, in another country somewhere. I just go to iHeart and dial into IVK or QUT and can listen to my heart's content. Feel like I'm right at home. But now if you are in one of the many countries that are out there and you want to listen to My Car Guru, you've got to go to wherever you get podcasts. Now, so how many countries are we in right now? Well, 75. Of course, the United States, Singapore, South Africa, Canada, United Kingdom, Australia, Germany, Sweden, India, and France. You just wouldn't think there'd be that many people would want to listen to Old Country Boy from East Tennessee at Talk Cars and give them ideas about their car life. They may be driving on the right-hand side of the car. They may be in England, or where else do they do that? Do they do that in Australia? I would think the Australians have more sense than that. I know they do in Japan. But, this show has had 11 downloads in Istanbul, Turkey. Come on, really? I guess that's just the power of the internet and how popular podcasts are. I went to Johnson City yesterday. I had to go up to get some new watch batteries. I've got a few watches that have gone dead, and they're kind of just really old watches that I just can't get rid of, and I hate to see them sitting there just with a blank screen. So I went to Dempsey's and got my batteries replaced, my favorite jewelry store. But my point is I listen to podcasts all the way up there and all the way back. I very seldom watch network TV, anything on regular TV like we used to. Remember when we had 3 channels plus PBS? Those were the good old days. My dad had this huge antenna on top of the house. We didn't even have a cable, too far out in the country. And we had this little electronic box that we could control. The antenna itself had a motor on it that would turn the antenna. So if we wanted to watch like Channel 5 in Bristol, we had to turn the antenna a certain way. And I'd turn the little dial and you could hear it go, as it was actually moving the antenna. And then the picture would get clear. Oh, we got to listen to JHL. Got to move the antenna. It's just the way it was. And when you wanted to call somebody, you had to pick up the phone and see if Clara at the switchboard was sleeping or awake. Hey, Clara, would you get Greene County Bank for me? No, it's really not. We were later than that, but you still had to dial it, and you had to look at a phone book. Can you imagine the young people, what they're saying? What's he talking about? Had to use a what? A phone book? What's that? When you think about it, there are people alive today that have never used a dial phone, and, they just Google everything. Google has been around their entire their entire life. And my grandkids, when we're on the phone with them or talking to somebody else, they don't understand how come I can't see them? How can we just talk? I can't see their picture. They think FaceTime is normal. Well, not to say it's not normal, but it's new to us old people. I like seeing people I'm talking to, don't you? Now, I don't do that on business calls. Like if you call me 423-552-2020, that's the Guru hotline, then, we don't have to see each other. You can just text, or you can call and leave a message. But what's that hotline for? It's for you. It's my only phone. It's my cell phone. I've got it right here. If you were to dial it right now, I would probably, I wouldn't answer because you'd have to go to voicemail because right now I'm busy. But that's what happens. I got a call from, where was that? Newport, Rhode Island yesterday. I got one from a place called Tucson, Arizona. You ever hear of that? Well, they weren't calls, they were text. And then the other one was from Louisville, Kentucky. So the podcast is reaching people. It's growing. I wouldn't say it's growing exponentially, but there's a desire out there. There's a need for straight talk. Now, who am I? Again, I am a new car dealer currently, not a past new car dealer. I is one now. I'm a Ford dealer. I'm a Nissan dealer. And, we sell a lot of Fords and Nissans, but we sell more used cars. We trade for a lot of cars. And that's one of the things I want to talk about today is the value of your vehicle and how you determine that, the things you need to be aware of. Now, on a daily basis, you don't need to be aware of that. You just have to know that it's going down in value every day. Well, I say that, and then President Trump announced the tariffs, and all of your garages became more valuable, or what's in your garage became more valuable, at least if you live in the United States. Now, if you're one of my listeners is from Perth, Australia, and I don't know what the tariffs have done to the value of your Holden. Yeah, that used to be General Motors of Australia. It was called Holden. Well, Holden doesn't exist anymore, just like Vauxhall doesn't. Doesn't that sound like something you would clean your toilets with? Honey, would you get me some Vauxhall? No, that was the name of a car company owned by General Motors. That was General Motors of Great Britain, Vauxhall. So your Vauxhalls and your Holdens, I don't know what's happened to the value of them, but in the United States, if you're driving a Honda or a Toyota or a Chevrolet or Ford, whatever, if it's sold in the United States, it's worth more now than it was a month ago because of the tariffs. See, there's an upside. I'll be back in just 1 minute. Okay, so we've established something good, which I always like to do, that the vehicle that you own is worth more than it was 1 month ago. That's not traditional. Traditionally, vehicles depreciate. They go down in value. But certain market conditions can definitely affect that, right? And so did the pandemic make your car worth more? Yes, it did. And it made people have to pay more for new vehicles. But what helped offset a lot of that was the fact that their current vehicles were worth more. And that shrunk basically the difference between what they owed on their vehicle and what their vehicle was worth, which we often call negative equity or being upside down. But hold your horses and don't go out and trade right now because of that, because there are other factors other than the market demand for your particular vehicle that determines the value. The first one is mileage. Now, we all know that if we use something a lot more than the average person does, it could be a household item. It could be something like your old couch that, you got tired of it, so you took it out of the house, you had some help, and you set it by the side of the road, right? Isn't that what you do? Is that what you all do with your couches out in the Pacific Northwest? That's what we do in East Tennessee. We just take it outside and set it beside the road. Somebody will come get it. No, that's not really true. But that couch is definitely not worth as much as it was when it was new because it's got a lot of miles on it. Average mileage for a car, about 15,000 miles a year. So if you're putting 20,000 miles per year on your vehicle, when you go trade it in 3 years with 60,000 miles on it, it's going to be worth less than a car with 45,000 miles on it. There is a mileage deduction. That's why when you go into KBB or Edmunds or something else, they always ask you, what's your VIN number and how many miles does it have on it? Now, another factor is how is your car equipped? What package does it have on it? You remember when you bought it and you decided to get the DX model rather than the LX model? Or you bought a GMC Yukon and you decided to get the base Yukon versus the Denali. You wanted something loaded up with a sunroof. Does that sunroof add value? Does it add the same amount of value as what you paid for it? No, it has depreciated along with the rest of the car, but it does add value. My question is, are you getting credit for that? Or are you just trusting the used car appraiser at that sleazy dealership where you decided to go shop. You know, the one that had the advertisement that said, "We'll give you $8,000 over book value for your trade." Yeah, but, where's the extra $8,000? Oh, that's only on certain trades. Or that's only on Tuesday between 10 and 11:05. Oh, okay. Well, how much over book value are you going to give me? We're going to give you less than book value because you didn't get a sunroof in your vehicle. And because you chose a DX model versus the LX, and the DX, they depreciate because people don't want to have to roll up windows with a window crank. They like power windows. So all of this content that you either buy or choose not to buy when you buy a new car, it comes back to either bless you or haunt you when you go to trade in. But all that being said, the mileage is going to have a bigger impact, especially if it's a lot of miles. Now, here's the good news about miles. It doesn't quite mean as much as it used to. 40 years ago when 46 years ago when I first got into the car business with my father at a Chevy dealership, and we had Mazda at the time. When a car hit 100,000 miles, it was considered pretty much done. And they were. I mean, they weren't built as well as they are now. There's a lot of people come around and they'll see these old cars in the showroom, like the 66 Mustang or, the 280Z or whatever, and they'll say, boy, they don't build cars like they used to. And I say, well, thank goodness. I mean, those cars are cool, but they're crude as well. And they weren't really comfortable, and they were noisy, and they weren't safe like cars are today. And they didn't really last as long. And they required a lot more maintenance. I mean, that 66 Mustang, you were supposed to have a tune-up every 12,000 miles. When you need a tune-up on most modern cars? Either 100,000 miles or never. And, if you just keep them serviced, keep the oil changed, keep the filters changed, you're good to go. You probably last 250,000 miles on a lot of vehicles. That just was unheard of back then. I mean, we're trading for F-150s on a pretty regular basis, and Chevrolet Silverados and even Rams that haven't fallen apart. We trade for those, and they'll have 150,000 miles and still have plenty of value left. I mean, be worth in excess of $25,000, $30,000. Depends on how they're equipped, obviously. But the mileage, you would think it would have a much more negative impact than it does. Another thing that used to really impact our ability to sell high mileage cars is the banks didn't want to finance them because they thought they were going to fall apart as well. They thought they had no more value left. But that's changed. I mean, we finance cars occasionally with 200,000 miles on them. Well, we don't. The banks do. So the equipment that the vehicle has on it is very important, and the mileage is very important. So what's the other leg of the stool, so to speak? It's condition. You mention condition to most people, and they say, well, it's clean. I just washed it. Well, we're talking about more than just whether it's clean. We're talking about, does it have any stars in the windshield? What's the condition of the tires, the brakes? How does it drive? Does it feel like it's, are the brakes squealing? Is the engine making noise? Is the transmission shifting right? Certain things there's that doorbell thing of mine. Somebody is coming and going at my house right now. That's a Ring doorbell. I heard that was presented on Shark Tank, and they shot it down. And now the guy's a gazillionaire. I know you probably think the angels have come to get me, but no, that's just my Ring doorbell. Okay, so I'm going to silence that thing. Okay, you are silenced, Ring doorbell. Yes, how you take care of your car matters. Maintenance records matter. I've got a guy coming in tomorrow, as a matter of fact, 10 o'clock. He's having problems with his vehicle. He took it to one of our competitors to get it fixed. He had I think it was a check engine light came on. And they diagnosed it as one thing, and they told him it was going to cost him like $3,500 to fix it. He said, well, I need to think about this. I listened to that guy on the radio. What's his name? Yeah, Lenny Lawson. Car Guru. And so he heard my phone number on there and he called me. He said, I've got this issue with my vehicle. What do you think I ought to do? And I said, well, the first thing you need to do, since you live in the Tri-Cities, is you need to drive that thing to Greenville and let me take care of it for you. He said, will you do that? And I said, of course. So he's dropping it off. And he may or may not have a problem. But what did I do? I called the manufacturer of his vehicle, which happens to be a Nissan. And, well, I didn't call the manufacturer. I called my service rep, and I told him what the situation was, told him the miles and the year. He said, well, Lenny, if he does have a problem with that particular thing, I'll cover it under the Goodwill program. Thank you very much. So he went from a potential cost of $3,500 to zero. But my whole point about this gentleman is that to protect himself over time and also to enhance the value of his vehicle at trade time or if he sells it to somebody else, he keeps detailed records of his maintenance. He keeps it in a little book, puts it in his glove box. I don't know if he keeps the receipts or not, but if if you don't want to keep another book, something else you have to keep track of, just every time you spend money on your car, neatly fold up that RO, the repair order, your invoice, fold it up and stick it in your glove box. If you have room. You may not have room. But that may also indicate the condition of the rest of your vehicle if you have no room in your glove box for some repair orders. Think about that. Because that does matter. When you come in to trade cars and you haven't had your vehicle detailed, and you haven't made sure that your oil level is right there at the full mark, and you have plenty of windshield washer solvent, and your brakes aren't squealing, this just seems like common sense to me. But the only thing common about common sense is that it's not very common. Enhance your ability to get more money for your car by maintaining it. Condition matters. Let's say that you've got aluminum wheels. They're 20 inches. And they've got scuffs all over them where you've curbed them. Go out and look at yours right now. In the brilliant wisdom of automotive design, they've decided to put skinnier tires on vehicles, low-profile tires. The wheels come all the way out. Sometimes they even stick out more than the tire does. First thing to hit a curb is that $800 wheel. We call it curb rash. And if you've got curb rash on all your wheels before you go to trade, you might want to, call me. I'll tell you how to get that taken care of. Instead of buying a new wheel for $800 plus installation, you can probably fix it for about $100. We have a wheel guy. Most dealerships do. If you live in Seattle, Washington, and you can't get to Greenville very quickly, then, just go to a local dealership, find a nice, friendly sales manager if you can find one. Say, how often does your wheel guy come in? He knows what you're talking about. He calls him a wheel guy. Now, what most people would do would go to the dealership parts department and order a new wheel, or go to the service department and say, how much is a new wheel going to cost for this thing? You don't need a new wheel. You just need the wheel guy. And then what about all those dents and dings that you have down the side of your vehicle? Most people would go to a body shop, get an estimate. You know what that body shop wants to do, right? They want you to pay them like $3,000 to take out all those dents and paint just one side of your vehicle, which is not good. The dent doctor, that's what we call him, he'll come around and he'll fix you. He'll take out every dent for about $30 per panel. That's a whole lot cheaper than $3,000 or $3,500. And plus, you don't have to paint anything. The dent doctor takes care of it. So if you live in Los Angeles, California, or Tucson, Arizona, you just go to your local dealership where you bought your car and say, when does your dent doctor come in? I need him to look at this. He said, I don't know. Let me call him, see when he'll be here next time. Normally, there's a regular day those guys come in and push out dents. But see, these are shortcuts and insider information. Well, this is insider information that you can only get by listening to this show. And that might be why I've got listeners in Turkey. I'll be back in just a minute. Okay, so let's review mileage, condition, market demand, and the level of equipment that you have on your vehicle. Those are the things that determine the value of your vehicle. And really, the ultimate determinant, is that a word, of the value of your vehicle is what somebody's willing to pay for it. You know, you got to find the highest bidder for your vehicle. Sometimes you do that on Facebook Marketplace or bringatrailer.com. You know, every time I tell somebody about Bring a Trailer, they've never heard about it. They say, bring a what? Why'd they call it that? Well, I don't know, but they've got over 1,000 auctions going on online, and I've sold just a little over $3 million worth of vintage cars. Not all of my cars, most of them were somebody else's that I've sold on that website. So don't make fun of the name. Just go to bringatrailer.com and check it out. Because if you want to know what your vehicle's worth, you know, there's a lot of, old Mercedes and Porsches and hot rods and all kinds of stuff on there, but you can search by vehicle and make and year, and it'll tell you if, I see Yukons and Mavericks, and, you don't see a lot of Hyundais and Kias on there, but, any kind of pretty cool car or truck, you can see what they're bringing on Bring a Trailer. And that's a nationwide, really a worldwide market. I mean, I've sold cars on bringatrailer.com that I thought were going to bring $15,000 less than they ultimately brought. I was elated, and so was the guy who owned the car that I was selling it for. So what somebody's willing to pay for your car determines what it's worth, but you just got to find that person. And sometimes that's not real convenient. So when you're shopping around for a new car, you go to a dealership, they're going to want to appraise your car. Make sure that they understand that you understand what the key factors are. If you want to have a good idea what your vehicle's worth, send me the information on it. I need the VIN, 17-digit VIN. I need the miles, and I need to know how it's equipped. Because the VIN doesn't tell you everything. It tells you what engine it has, what transmission it has, where it was built, but it doesn't tell you the color. It doesn't tell you all the details. I need the details. And I probably could use some pictures so I can determine condition. And if you can send me a snapshot of the original window sticker, that would be very helpful to determine, what equipment it has on it and what it really is. And then I'll give you a value. I can tell you what I'd pay for it, and I'm a car dealer. I've been a car dealer for 46 years. I know. Are market values in the southeastern United States different from the Northeast and the Northwest and the Southwest? Yes, there's some variations, but not a lot. So give me a call or send me a text, 423-552-2020, or send me an email to LennyLawson2020@gmail.com. And Lenny is spelled Lennie, just so you know. And I'll see you on the next edition of My Car Guru.